Hello and welcome to the Women on the Wall radio show. This is Alice Linahan, your host for today, and we are going to get started actually with Stacy on the right. And we're going to find out a little bit about what it's like to be on your local school board and why you yourself should step up to run or find someone in your local community who can run. But here in Texas, just so you know, tomorrow, Friday the 28th, is the last day to file to run in the May school board elections. So folks, it's time to step up and get a little motivation from Stacy on the right.
Okay, let me just say that's a bit of a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. So let's see. How to succeed on school board. Well, I want to start, before I even get into that, I want to warn you that I'm up here, my express reason for being up here, besides Donna asking me to be here, is that I'm planning to offend you. I'm planning to light a brush fire under you to get you to become more active in this educational system that is in control of all of our children. Now, if you don't have any children, they're still your children because your tax dollars are educating them. And if your kids are in private school, it's still your public school because your tax dollars, those people who work for those tax dollars are your employees. So I'm here because I want to make you angry enough to either get active yourself or tell that friend, like she so eloquently shared, she had friends who encouraged her to do this. I did too. Oh my gosh, I said the same thing. I can't educate my kids. I don't have a bachelor's degree. I can't homeschool. There are people who go to school to do that. That's what I'm supposed to do, is I'm supposed to send my kids there. I can't send my kids to private school because that costs lots of money, and you know, private school people, you know how they are. So, you know, I'm up here because it's kind of weird. I'm listening to her story and how she kind of just fell into it, and it was a lot of prayer, and that's exactly what happened to me. I had friends who said, oh my gosh, you shouldn't be doing the kindergarten social, you shouldn't be organizing the coffee for the moms, you know, third grade moms, you should be sitting in those meetings and helping them make decisions about what they're going to do with our kids. And the first time they said it, I was thinking, well, when do I have time to do that? I mean, I got to water the pots out in the front and have to make copies. Well, sure, that's what the teachers want me doing. They don't want me sitting in those meetings making decisions because I like balancing budgets. I think we should spend only the money that we have. I don't think there's an unlimited amount of tax dollars available for them to build new buildings and implement new policies. In fact, I'm pretty sure that every policy they've recently implemented has not done what it was supposed to do because that's the hallmark of liberalism, failure. So before I go off too far into the tangent, I'll get back to exactly what I'm supposed to do here. So I'm here to tell you unsecrety secrets about school board, because there's not a person in this room, unless you're not 18, a citizen of the state of Missouri and resided in your local school district for 12 months, that isn't capable of doing the job that I do as vice president of the Ladue Schools Board of Education. If I can do it, any person in this room can do it. And I guarantee you, since this is the tip of the sword, people who come to these types of events and sit through these types of talks and absorb this type of information, you're the tip of the sword. In your circle, you have a number of people. It might be one, you might have four, you might be a super networker, you might know 10 fantastic people who are currently spending their time on the Magic House Museum Board when they should be sitting on the Board of Education. Now, I want you to know this is a cheap proposition. $3,300 and knocking 650 doors gets you on school board in this school district where this building sits. Other districts, it can be a little more expensive. It can be a little more involved. We're not paid to be on school board here in Missouri, so it's a little cheaper. It's a little easier to get on. I know in Florida they pay, in Louisiana they pay. I know you guys are from all over the country, so you have to look into what school board really means in your area, but why is it important? Well, the school board members here in Missouri only have 3 jobs. We supervise the superintendent of the school district. We pass a budget that is set for us by the CFO or superintendent of finance, assistant superintendent of finance, and then we create and pass policy. Now, policy that's the big, thick book. It used to be a huge binder. Now it is online. You can go online on any school district and find out what their policies are on anything, like how much sexually explicit material is permitted in advertising in each level of K through 12 education. Well, you're probably thinking, none. Well, you'd be wrong. You know, they allow some in middle school and they allow a little bit more in high school. Why do they do that? Because school board members, they vote yes to that. When you say something about that, the looks on people's faces, it's kind of like, what, you don't expect us to allow any smut in advertising at the high school? And my answer is, no, you shouldn't have any smut at the high school level. Who cares how many kids at the high school level are having sex or doing drugs? We shouldn't have that available to them. Now, what I've learned as a school board member, it's not been pretty. First of all, I never said, oh, I'm going to run for school board. I actually was volunteering on the strategic planning committee, and I was interacting with board members, and they had a board member actually get hired into the district to work, and so she had to step down from her seat. There were 12 months left, so they sent out, an email, everyone in the district, we're going to appoint someone for 10 months to this slot. Come in and interview. A board member calls me up at home, a woman I've never met, and she's like, whenever I call people, they never return my calls, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is really not going to be good. What could she want from me? And she says, I think you should apply. And I said, why? And she said, well, some of us were sitting around talking, and we thought you'd be great. And I was like, who? I mean, who are you guys that you even know who I am, and you think I should be one of you? And she's like, anybody can do it. If you say yes, I'll prep you for the interview. And I said, will I win? And she said, I don't know. Will you prep with me? Will you do a good job? And I'm thinking, this sounds interesting. So, and I had actually been praying about, God, do you want me doing in the classroom, I'm doing, helping with reading and literature and things like that, or am I supposed to be doing something else? People keep telling me I'm supposed to be doing administration stuff, and I don't have the background for that. I can't be with these people because they have something in education and they're working in education, and I don't have that. So when she called me, I just went straight into the family room, and my husband was like, who is that? And I said, it was a board member asking me to run for an appointment. And he said, oh, of course you're going to do that, right? And I was like, this will mean like 2 meetings a month and more meetings than I'm already doing, and I'm already volunteering and stuff, and you're fine with that? And he was like, somebody needs to tell those people what's really going on. I'm tired of them always asking for money. And so I said, okay, if you're sure. So I called her right back and said, sure. So she had me over, and we talked about, what do you do as a school board member, what the interviewing process would be like. And I went up against 3 people with either MBAs or double masters, and I'm sitting there with my, I'm a, what do they call it? Like a domestic engineer, I suppose. And I'm sitting there, but I knew all the answers because I studied. And that's the difference between people who, they go into education and they feel like they've already learned everything they need to know. They don't need to prep for anything. They are the answer. They are the ones who know better than you, whether they have kids or not, whether they live in the district or not, whether they have like 2 active brain synapses firing or not. They know better because they've got PhDs and stuff, right? So I'm sitting there, and the board members, they're the ones who make the decision. They voted for me. So I go on the board, and I spend the first 10 months kind of sitting there, listening and learning. And I just remember driving home one night, and I just felt like God was like, this is kind of a waste. You're just sitting there. So now my appointment's up. It's time to run. So I file. I run. Everyone thinks I'm a liberal. So you guys think, the school board is nonpartisan, right? Because that's what it says on the actual ballot, nonpartisan school board. Well, when you go around and knock doors, people ask you, especially Democrats, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we conservatives, we're always like, oh, that liberal's my friend, and so I'm going to vote for her. I'm going to give her $50, and she's going to get on there and do such a great job. The hell she is. If she's a liberal, she's still going to be your friend. She's going to get on there and jack stuff up because that's what liberals do. And so, stop mistaking your friendship for intelligence. Liberals always mess stuff up, and when they do happen to make stuff work well, That's accidental. Clocks are right twice a day. I mean, I'm being real with you, and I haven't gotten to the offensive part yet. So I'm this unlikely candidate, so I run, and I'm in a district that is very, it's small, everybody knows each other, and I get like a huge number of votes, but I still lose by 450 votes. And so I'm devastated. I'm at home crying like I've lost a relative. A girlfriend calls me up. She's like, were you happy before you were on school board? And I was like, yeah. She said, then you'll be happy again. So she comes over, takes me to the movies. I see the worst movie ever. I realize my life can't be that bad because everybody in the movie is either killing each other or getting a divorce. And I said, well, what am I going to do with my time? And just like that, because if you ask God a question, oh, he's got an answer for you. I meet someone who, she's in this room. She's my neighbor. I met her during, Vivian Wydrzinski, she's back there. She's not gonna acknowledge the fact that I'm, okay, there she is. Yeah, so she's friends with my neighbor. My neighbor figures out that I'm not a liberal, and she's like, oh my gosh, she's like so happy. And I'm thinking, why did you think so I'm like, what is with everybody thinking I'm a liberal? So Vivian invites me out to lunch with her friend who does Tea Party speaking, and the friend is like, you need to come speak at a tea party. And I was like, a tea party? That sounds interesting. So, of course I did. I just totally did. I went and spoke in front of 4,500 people under the arch, and I talked about genocide and abortion, lovely topics, and everybody loved it. My husband was there with the kids. He saw somebody from work, and he was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, my wife's speaking. And he said, what? So, after that, it was like, it just wouldn't stop. I started volunteering for an organization, which I ended up doing a radio hit on Almond. Then I ended up being a weekly contributor. He said, you need some place for people to find you, so then I get a blog. The blog is Stacy on the Right. It's stacyontheright.com. And, that got pretty popular. And then I started doing social media. And so I started to really, it was fun. But over the course of that, the next December comes around, filing opens again, and I am bound and determined to get back on that board because my kids are still in the district, and now I know what they're doing. So I run, and I run unopposed. So I just get to slide on in there. And I even said, Lord, I just don't want to knock all those doors again. And, well, I'll pretty much do whatever you put in front of me. I'd love not to have an election. I know I'm not supposed to bargain with you, so that wasn't a bargain. That was just me thinking out loud. And so I went ahead and I went onto the board and started there. Well, so now I'm on the board, and now I've spoken, and now I've been on the radio a little bit, and now I'm having fun kicking butt. So now I'm not sitting there anymore. Now, and it starts to get unfun, but it's fun at the same time, because yes, I'm voting and I'm making an impact, but on the same side, I'm always voting no. So, and everyone's voting yes, and they're like, what's with her? What's wrong with her? She's like, no to this and no to that. And so I started explaining why. Well, it took about a year of me voting no and driving home from school board meetings, wondering why I was there, before that board began to slowly, like the Titanic, shift. So socially, obviously, liberals never change on that because there's no switch for that. If you're emotionally driven, you cannot turn that off. You have to be educated out of that early, or you are emotionally driven. Conservatives are driven by facts and logic, and that is why no matter how much you feel something, if it is wrong, you're going to reject that. Yeah. That's the difference. That's the huge difference between us. And when you understand that, you understand why they are so nonsensical about issues that are so integral to spending, like abortion, like the link between Planned Parenthood and rampant overspending. The more money we give them, the larger our deficit gets. I mean, it's the law of sowing and reaping. If we're going to murder 1.1 million babies a year, we're also not going to be fiscally responsible, and we will fall. That is the fact. That's what's happening. That's what's going to happen if we don't right the ship. So I was able to make some inroads with them and teach them a few things, like, being black is not the same as being gay, because people who are liberal really feel like they have the right to say anything they want to black people because they're taking one for the team because they're liberal. So, open season, black is the same as gay, and I'm like, not really. So now I've got the 3-minute sign in my face, so I gotta run through this thing. Okay, so now it's time for me to offend you, and I got to do it quick. So what's going on in the school district? We've listened at this conference. There are kids getting suspended for kissing, 6-year-olds kiss another kid, 6-year-old on the cheek. It's a girl and a boy, so the boy gets suspended. He's a sex offender. Things like that are happening all over the country. You're wondering why that's happening. I'm here to tell you why. It's your fault. Every time we have a vote on school board, when I vote no for something, or if I vote yes and people don't like it, they email me, they tweet me, why did you increase my taxes? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? I'm thinking, why didn't you, with your 500 best friends who are Republicans, some of whom live in the district, why didn't you send an email blast right before we had that vote to give me some support? I have my sword out. I've got guns blazing. I'm ready to rock. I'm doing everything that I can, but I can't do it all without you. So you've got to do something. So whatever you hear in the news about local schools, it's your fault. If you live in the district and your kids are in private school, still your fault. If you spend more time on beautification than you do attending school board meetings, if you don't know who your school board members are, if you've never given money to a school board member, if you've never taken one out to coffee or lunch, if you've never gotten in their face and told them, I heard you voted this on that, and guess what? You're wrong. It's your fault. Now, don't think that I don't have a solution for that. The solution is that, and also if you're afraid of your school board member retaliating against you, or your child's teacher retaliating against you. You know something's wrong in your child's classroom, but you're afraid of retaliation. My answer to that is you retaliate. Get up, go down to the Board of Election in the second week of December and file for school board. That's how you make sure nobody retaliates against your child. That's how you make sure they don't retaliate against other people's children. Oversight is the key to managing government officials. I am the employee, unpaid, of the people of the Ladue School District, and I absolutely expect them to call me and ask me and talk to me about what it is that I'm doing on school board. Now, I'm coming off because guess what? My kids are in private school. Put them in the fall. My husband and I, this is a long journey. It took a lot of prayer, a lot of work on our part, but my kids can't be a part of the battle that I'm waging for our culture. They're in private school in a Christian environment where they don't have to be afraid to say Merry Christmas, and I don't care who doesn't like it. Those are my kids. And when I told the board members my kids are not in the school district anymore, they asked me what I could do, and I said, nothing. Can't do anything. You can't do anything to placate me. So here is the close. And I may not have offended you enough, but I think I only asked for 13 minutes. So retaliating. How do you retaliate? How do you succeed in school board? How do you turn the tide that liberalism has impacted on our culture? You run. You tell everyone you're running. You save your clause for serious issues. If you can vote yes on something and it's small and you have to give a little bit, do it. Your clause for things that matter, money and indoctrination. You pull your clause out for that. Don't be afraid to say no and say why. Rinse and repeat. Say no, say why, rinse and repeat. Every time you say no, a little child gets her conservative wings. Just say no. All of their ideas are bad. They're not smart. Just say no. Pray and crack the whip. It's number 5. Pray and crack the whip. Flip the table. Who is the original whip-cracking table flipper? It's Jesus. I am the original rage kitty for Jesus. I'll flip a table, I'll crack a whip, I will make my point heard. You may not get it the first time, but since I like to rinse and repeat, you're going to understand me at some point. This is not a tough concept. Repeating yourself is actually easy for most of us because we're all moms. So I'm going to close out with this. And all of that's metaphorical. If you're in the room and you're a reporter, you can see me after. And no, I don't mean that I'm going to actually whip people with a whip or flip actual tables. Those are metaphors. So this is my word for you on courage. Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and of a good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them, for the Lord thy God, it is he that doth go with you. He will not fail you. He will not forsake you. On your way to your school board meeting, pray. Ask God to give you the courage and the words. And I'm telling you, I have said things in school board meetings I didn't know I was capable of saying. I didn't know I was capable of doing radio or TV. But I've done those things because I just say, God, I hope you got something for me to say. And he does, every single time. And Donna mentioned heroes. This is what she's doing. This is what I'm asking you to do. I want you to go find that hero that you know and ask him or her to run for school board. We are already out there. We're just sitting silently while the liberals run everything they touch into the ground. Don't let them do that to us. So I'm closing it out. The 5,000-Year Leap quote, because that's like my favorite book ever. And this is by Benjamin Franklin. Here is my creed. I believe in one God, the creator of the universe, that he governs it by his providence, that he ought to be worshipped, that it is the most acceptable service we render to him in doing good to his other children, that the soul of man is immortal. And that's the deal, guys. We're not dying and then that's it. You're living on forever. You're either going to be with God or you're going to totally suck for eternity. Share that with a liberal. And that the soul of man is immortal and will be treated with justice in another life, respecting its conduct in this. These I take to be the fundamental points in all sound religion, Benjamin Franklin. You are able to do what I'm doing. No one, you don't have to be loud. You don't have to be a rage kitty. You can be a silent missile. You don't have to do it my way. Do it your way. But for God's sake, do it. Don't sit in here and absorb this information and take it away and put it on your bookshelf. Go tell someone you know who's awesome that they ought to be on school board and you're going to be their treasurer and you and your best friends are all going to give $100. Everybody's got 32 best friends. And now you've got someone you know on school board who you can email. This teacher did this, and they're not going to do anything about the teacher, but you have someone you can bounce ideas off of who knows policy, who's in that room when they're doing religious persecution in the closed sessions. You know what I mean? They hire and they fire. I vote to hire and fire. They are doing what liberals do in those closed sessions, and they're doing it legally because none of us are there to say, what did you just say? I'm not having that. Any one of you can do this. I'm hoping next year a bunch of you will be standing up and saying, I did this. Join me. Pick up your sword. It's fun. Thank you.
Well, now you know why I wanted to play this video of Stacy on the right. She is amazing, and I had the opportunity to go and see Stacy in St. Louis. She spoke at the Constitutional Coalition Education Policy Conference. There were some amazing speakers. That's actually where I was able to hear Dr. Stan Hartzler, who we had on the show last week. So I wanted to share Stacy with you and her message because we're in this primary season right now, but we have school board elections across the state of Texas happening in May. And so we have got to get ready for that. And so, like she said, find someone who you know is awesome and help them run for school board if it's not you yourself. I know that we've got some people who have stepped up. I heard a rumor this morning that Ginger Russell was going to be running in Magnolia ISD, which would be amazing because we know that she will be right on it. I want to share a message and kind of take it down another path of American exceptionalism with another video, and then we're going to talk about it and talk about technology, what's going on in Texas next week with South by Southwest Education Conference, and talk about the gift of American exceptionalism and if that comes through a computer or if that comes through grit and hard work, or both. So Josh, I think we've got this video.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. I need somebody with arms strong enough to wrestle a calf and yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild. Somebody to call hogs, tame cantankerous machinery, come home hungry, have to wait lunch until his wife's done feeding visiting ladies, then tell the ladies to be sure and come back real soon and mean it. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay, wire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps, who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, and then painin' from tractor back put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God had to have somebody willing to ride the ruts at double speed to get the hay in ahead of the rain clouds and yet stop in midfield and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's place. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets, who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer. It had to be somebody who'd plow deep and straight and not cut corners, somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the self-feeder and finish a hard week's work with a 5-mile drive to church. Somebody who'd bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. So God made a farmer.
You know, I love that commercial. Many of you have seen it before, and I absolutely don't mind giving a plug for that commercial. And you may not know that that was filmed in large part in Texas, just outside of Hondo, Texas. And I happen to know the older gentleman, his daughter, who's in that video. And you know, you think about what's going on in education today, and you think about what makes America exceptional, and it's when one generation teaches another generation about how to work hard and do the right thing. And I think we are in a very interesting time where those things may be going away. And I want to let people know that there is a big conference in Austin. It's many of you might have heard of South by Southwest. It's a huge technology conference. They talk about music. It's really amazing to see the technology and see the innovations that have been made. And not everything in technology is bad, obviously, because we're doing this show today, because we become the media radio station that we can live stream this show. The fact that everyday people, a mom from Texas, can do a show like this is pretty amazing. So technology is not bad, but are we giving up what is presented in that commercial when our children have no concept of one generation learning from the next, and when in fact, because of the way that our children are being taught in schools today, we're actually severing that generational, the gift of one generation can give to the next. So in Austin, this South by Southwest conference is happening. They actually have the South by Southwest Ed U conference. And I just want to read off who some of the featured speakers are for this event next week. It starts Monday, March 3rd, and you can go on southbysouthwested.com. It's sxswedu.com, and you can check this out for yourself. Diane Ravitch will be speaking, and it's interesting. Diane Ravitch is against the Common Core. She's been very outspoken about it, but don't be deceived, because many of these people, while they may be speaking out against Common Core national standards, they're not concerned about the content that is concerning to many of us. So you have Diane Ravitch. She's going to talk about the reign of error, the danger of privatizing public schools. And let me just read what it says. Diane Ravitch, research professor of education, New York University. Diane Ravitch shines light on the dangers of the privatization of Americans' public schools and its negative impact on future generations. This talk is designed for citizens who see long-term potential in the youth of America and don't want to inhibit it due to others seeking short-term profit. Ravitch reveals what can be done to preserve private school education, making clear that is what is right with our education system and how policymakers are failing to address root causes of educational failure. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is that Diane Ravitch and many others, like I said, aren't necessarily concerned about the liberal leaning, as Donna Gardner would say, type 2 philosophy of education, that content that's in there. She has no problem with that. But she does have a problem with the privatization of schools. She's very involved with the union, the teachers union out of New York. Now, you have to be careful when you're in this battle for against Common Core that you know what people's agenda is. And in Texas, thankfully we do not have a huge, powerful teachers union. But what we do have are these non-governmental associations. We've talked about them before. TASA, the Texas Association of School Administrators, and TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards. And it's interesting because Diane Ravitch she wants to preserve public schools and don't go down the privatization path. But if you look at who is profiting off of the curriculum products that our teachers are being evaluated on, it gets very disheartening. It gets very disheartening. And when you look at TASA, the Texas Association of School Administrators, and their connection to the Ratliff family, the Ratliffs have been involved in Texas education for years and have been very much a part of legislation that has passed or not passed. Bill Ratliff, the former lieutenant governor of the state of Texas, former state senator, wrote legislation that took power away from the local school board and put it in the hands of the superintendents. The superintendents are kind of like the figurehead of the local school district and very, very, very powerful. And so you have to understand that there's a lot of illusions in education today, that things that seem right aren't always what they seem to be. And so we're going to talk about that again in a minute. But I want to just give people a caution about Diane Ravitch that, yes, she's against Common Core national standards, but there's still things to worry about. Another one of the big speakers is Nolan Bushnell. He's going to talk about game dynamics can be a game changer in learning, and talking about how technology, video games, can enhance the classroom, gaming. I don't know. I think that there's a time and a place for children. I know many of us started out gaming on Atari and Pong. It's definitely gone into a new direction. So you've got the gaming technology that's going to be coming into the classroom. Um, why higher ed is big and bold in Texas. Francisco Segarra is going to be speaking as well. He's going to talk about the charter as established a university of first class hasn't. I'm sorry, the charter to establish a university of first class hasn't changed for the UT system since its creation in 1876. Through the landscape of higher ed and what defines higher ed and what defines that certainly has. The UT system continues to set the standard for access and success for over 213,000 students attending 15 UT institutions. Texas's bold and innovative vision includes a plan to establish 2 medical schools, transform education and healthcare in the Rio Grande Valley, and lead the nation in online learning. So when you look at this fundamental transformation of education coming down into our K through 12 classrooms, you'll understand that this is a part of a bigger plan of fundamentally transforming education in Texas. So he's going to be speaking on that. There also speaking is going to be David Coleman. Isn't that interesting? So David Coleman is going to be speaking. David Coleman is head of the College Board. He is the one that has written a lot of the English standards for the Common Core National Standards, even though he's never taught a class in a classroom before. He's also the one that, as things move forward in this big plan to fundamentally transform education in America, a lot of your school districts, your charter schools, private schools, and public schools are all signing on to this Common Core philosophy of education, because David Coleman is working to make sure that the SAT, the ACT, and the GED are all aligned with this Common Core philosophy of education. And so that's why you have a lot of your private schools, Catholic schools, who have signed on to the Common Core philosophy of education. So also speaking will be Senator and Governor, or she's running for governor in the state of Texas, Wendy Davis. She's going to be talking about great schools, a vision for the future. Texas State Senator Wendy Davis rose to national prominence in June of 2013 for an 11-hour filibuster against legislation that is harmful to women's health. Huh, I didn't know that's what that bill was about. I thought it was about not killing children in the womb after 20 weeks. I didn't know it was about legislation that's harmful to women's health. Before that, in 2011, Senator Davis filibustered a budget that cut state education funding by $5.4 billion. On October 3rd, 2013, Senator Davis announced her candidacy for governor of Texas. They're calling on folks, join Wendy Davis to learn more about her personal educational journey, the challenges facing Texas's growing education system, and her vision for the future of Texas education. So this is going on next week in Austin, And you can follow along if you can't make it down to Austin. You can follow along a lot of the speeches and what will be presented. Believe, from what I understand, will be online as well. So you'll be able to see some of these speeches. But I will be following this event, and I just want people to understand that when you see that Ram truck commercial, and you see and you know and you feel that American exceptionalism, the question is, can that be taught online through a virtual classroom? I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, I'm not saying that everything in technology is bad. I'm not. What I am saying is that we are giving up some of our exceptionalism to just sign on for this and to allow this to fundamentally transform our state and our nation. I want to tell you about a great article that came out by Henry Burke. We had him on the conference call, our Women on the Wall conference call last week, and he talks about how much these states who are signing on to, or who have signed on to the Common Core, how much it will actually end up costing the state. Because just because you get that federal money through Race to the Top grants doesn't mean it's going to cover your cost. In fact, many states are going to really suffer financially because of the cost of this Common Core. So in Texas, one school district had applied for the Race to the Top money, Houston ISD. The name of this article is Houston ISD Sells Its Soul for 30 Silver Coins. And he makes it clear that in the irony of this whole story is that because Houston Independent School District receives only $30 million from the United States Department of Education for Race to the Top, the Houston ISD will have a net loss. Get this right, a net loss of $50 million to $70 million. And so for all these school districts who are now trying to push bonds, these huge, huge amounts of money, this bond money that they're trying to get access to so that they can fundamentally transform our campuses into 21st century learning, to me is actually quite scary. And actually in Texas, we supposedly passed a law, House Bill 462, that does not allow Common Core standards in the state of Texas. And the Texas Attorney General has not rendered an opinion on the legality of Houston ISD using the Common Core standards. HB 462, as passed by the 83rd Legislative Session, forbids Common Core standards in Texas. If Houston ISD goes ahead and implements the Common Core standards, because when you take that money, you are signing a contract. And the contract, actually, the Race to the Top application that Houston ISD hired consultants to fill out for them to win this money, was over 700 pages. In that, you have to agree to the national Common Core standards. So all those children in Houston ISD will have to adhere to the national Common Core standards. Oh, but wait, I thought we passed a law that said our public schools cannot adhere or be mandated to use the Common Core standards. The Race to the Top District Award, the Houston Independent School District applied for $29,999,000 1,782 and Race to the Top competition in October of 2013, and it was announced as a winner in December. The school districts from 4 other states, Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, and South Carolina, received awards in the 2013 competition. What is interesting as well, and I'm moving down into this, I want to read this to you. Yeah, it was 745 pages long. And one of the major vendors for the Houston ISD in 2013 was the Type 2, which is that collectivist philosophy of education that Donna Gardner talks about. The company, one of the vendors, is Connect Ed, a California Center for College and Career Ready, according to the Houston ISD online check register. So this is verifiable. The Houston ISD online check register, they issued a check for $279,000 on 5/24/2013 to Connect Ed. The California Center of Connect Ed. And Henry Burke says it would not be surprising if Connect Ed played a major role in preparing the lengthy HISD grant application. So this is happening. This is big, and we can either let it go and not say anything as parents and grandparents and taxpayers of Houston ISD, or we can step up and say, no, you are not going to teach my children this. And just as Stacy says, Stacy on the right, we have got to step up, because what they're trying to bring into our schools is not good. It is wrong. And, you know, we're in a primary right now, and it is getting down and dirty and in the mud. And I want to tell you that one of the great concerns, and this is not coming from Women on the Wall, this is coming from me personally. Women on the Wall does not endorse, but for informational purposes, I am very interested to know why Ken Paxton sponsored Bennett Ratliff, who is Bill Ratliff's son, who is a state representative out of Coppell, and we're really, really hoping that Matt Rinaldi replaces him and removes him from office. But Ken sponsored Bennett Ratliff's House Bill 2824. And this bill, which thankfully was vetoed by Governor Perry, this bill 2824 would have provided space, and I just love this language, you have to really look at it. HB 2824 would have provided space and flexibility to the 23 school districts participating in the consortium to carry out the research and development necessary to accomplish the goals initially outlined in 1557 to transform public education. So I have a question for you. Why is it that conservative Republicans are walking in lockstep with Wendy Davis Democrats on education? And I personally, as a mom, I have a real problem with that. And, you know, Ken Paxton and Dan Patrick and all of the legislators, it was voted on overwhelmingly. They all may want to reform education, but these products, these curriculum products, have not been proven and found piloted or proven successful. So what are they doing? This bill 28-24 would have set up the structure for these 23 school districts to do research and development. I'm sorry, but my kids are not guinea pigs. And I don't want for my tax dollars in our school districts to go to be used for research and development so that curriculum products can be made, and we just don't know if they're going to work or not because our kids are guinea pigs. Why are we not paying for, with our tax dollars, curriculum that is piloted and proven successful? I don't know about you, but I have a real problem with that. I have a real problem with the fact that House Bill 2103 was authored by Representative Dan Branch, who is also running for the Attorney General position in the state of Texas. And House Bill 2103 sets up 3 education research centers that in the name of education research have access to our children and their teachers' personal data. Guys, this is a big deal. And I don't know why conservatives and conservative parents and grandparents are not outraged at this and speaking out loudly. And, you know, I want to know all of this legislation, who's writing it? I know that Dan Branch authored it. I know that Ken Paxton sponsored Bennett Ratliff's bill. But who's actually writing this? And it's interesting when you connect the dots. We talked about the fact that we don't have these big unions in Texas, but we have TASA and TASB. How is TASA and TASB funded? Well, partially by our tax dollars. Because we pay for our superintendents to be members of these associations. We pay for them to go to professional development and conferences. We pay for our school board members to go to training through Texas Association of School Boards. All of that money is being used to fundamentally transform our children and to lobby. If you go on the TASA website, you'll see they're set up as a lobby, as a nonprofit to lobby legislators. And our legislators are coming back and sponsoring and passing legislation that fundamentally transforms our nation. So you tell me, do you as a parent, do you as a teacher have any say-so in what's being taught in our schools? Do you as a school board member even know what's being taught in our schools and know that you have the power to stop it? Because you have the power, the purse strings. The only power you have is not to fund it. So when these votes, just like Stacy on the right, was saying, she went in there, she got elected on the school board, and she started voting no. No. Because what happens now is the superintendent recommends to the school board that we have this product, that we send our teachers to this conference, that we do this professional development. The superintendent recommends it, and then the school board just signs off on it and gives the funding for it. We have got to stop it. We have got to take our schools back. And we've just got a few minutes left. If there's anyone who has a question and would like to call into the show, you can call 714-242-5220. That's 714-242-5220. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you. You know, there are so many of us that have been, over the last 8 months, we have been having conference calls every Wednesday night. And we had a conference call last night. It was a great call, very informative. And we talked about this race to the top money. And just to clarify, Okay, so Texas said no to Common Core, but we have school districts going directly around the legislature and going to the federal government for this money and signing off on the standards. And we talked about that, and you can go on Facebook onto the Women on the Wall website, our Facebook wall, and find the archive of our show last night. It was a really informative show. And Josh, I think we've got a question.
Well, I have a question.
Great.
Because you mentioned earlier about video games coming into the classroom. I don't have a problem with video games. I personally don't play video games, but I can see where video games would be a good resource if it was used for math or science or something like that.
Right.
But the problem the concern I guess I would have is that so many of our schools are propagandizing our kids. Mm-hmm. And these video games these days, it's near virtual reality. My concern would be: are they going to be using these video games to teach social left-wing agendas? Are they going to be promoting a homosexual lifestyle through video games like they do out in California? Is sex education going to be taught through video games? I mean, at what point does a video game be classified as pornography?
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And these are concerns. I mean, when you start looking at what is being taught, now that we have parents across the country who are waking up and asking, can I see what you're teaching my child? The Can I See program. Can I see what you're teaching my child? Can I see how you're teaching my child? I want to see the teacher's manuals. I want to see what is being taught and how it's being taught. And 3, who's financially benefiting from the curriculum products. What we're seeing across the country is that what's in there is pornography being taught in the classroom. There is the pro-homosexual lifestyle. It's interesting. I had a conversation with a curriculum director in a school district here in Texas, and she's very much bought into all of this because she said she wrote the curriculum. She wrote the program. And you know what? She's a solid conservative. She and I are on the same page. But she uses all of this project-based learning type of learning. And not all of it is bad. But if you don't have the foundation to know right from wrong, you can't go there yet. And what I told her is, if she's teaching my child using project-based learning, I'm probably okay with that. But, we're not supposed to ask teachers what their politics are. We're not supposed to. That's offensive. Well, if you're going to be teaching my child using project-based learning, using this collectivist philosophy of education, you're damn right I want to know what your politics are, because you're going to be influencing my child. And it's interesting. I had a conversation with a grandparent from San Antonio this morning that was concerned because she saw a Common Core book in her grandchild's Christian school. And we had this conversation about how, and when you look at it, and when you look at what's being pushed at South by Southwest, and all the STEM and the academic coordination that's happening between high schools and the university level, we're pushing concepts and ideas down at a lower and lower age. So just like, what's being taught in the sex ed classes, we would have never taught that in sex ed classes, 30 years ago, because that's a family's job. But it's being taught lower and lower. And what we're finding out time and again is that children are not developmentally ready for this. There are studies, there is proof to show that the brain is not fully developed and there are children.
Well, heck, I'm in my 30s, and I don't know if I'm ready for it.
Exactly.
Some of the stuff they're teaching these kids, you go slack jaw and go, oh my God.
It is. It's child abuse,
Yeah.
in my opinion. It's child abuse. And so now that's not to say that technology is bad and innovation is bad. It's not. We've got to come to grips with it. But we've also got to come to grips of the dangers and the harm. And when I go back to that commercial, the Ram
10 seconds.
Dodge commercial, what are we giving up? We're giving up what made our country great. And just like Donna Garner said when she was here the other day, the people that put us on the moon learned their math on a big chief tablet. So
There you go.
there you go. So with that, we will close out the show, and I just want to thank everyone for being with us. And you're going to want to share this video, especially Stacy from the right. She has amazing things to say, and we need to motivate and encourage those who are willing to step up and run for our local school boards. So thanks, and have a great day.